You can do anything you want to do in life. You just have to want to do it. You have to put in the work. If God's ready for you to do it, He'll open those doors of abundance and you're going to be good to go.
You are now listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with your host, Jorge Valenzuela.
This is education coach Jorge Valenzuela. Welcome to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast, where I provide all educators, whether instructional leaders or teachers, tips on how to be their best both personally and professionally. Now let's get into it. We're here today with the one and only David Powell. David is a well-known motivational speaker who happens to have a unique story. I'm really excited to have him on the show. How are you?
I'm good, George. I'm pumped up to be on the show, so thanks again for having me.
For the audience, I don't know David on a personal level, but I've been following him for over a year now. He's all over social media, and he's very inspirational and a really good guy. Much respect to you.
Thank you, sir. You as well. You're doing a great job, too, so that's why I'm really excited to be on the show.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
David, give us your backstory and also your journey to how you got where you are now as a motivational speaker.
I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Like you said, I was born with a unique situation. I don't have arms. My legs are not your normal legs. They're a little different than everybody else's. They never really pinpointed down what the cause of it was. They speculated my mom was she was a pill popper, unfortunately. And I think that she may have been taking Xanax when she was pregnant with me. There's some other possibilities where she grew up. She had a lot of pesticides being sprayed in North Louisiana. A couple of her friends in her class, they had either a mentally or physically handicapped child too. They weren't really able to point down which one or combination of both. Never really stopped me. As you can see, I'm gonna get into that a little bit here in a moment. My parents met when they were in recovery. They were alcoholics and drug addicts. They ended up divorcing when I was about 3 or 4 due to my dad grasped the concept of recovery, but my mom couldn't get it down. My dad couldn't be around that anymore, so he had to separate himself. He moved to Dallas. There was times growing up where he wanted to get custody of me because he knew the situation, but he didn't want to rip a little boy away from his mom. But when I was with my mom by myself, it was kind of a struggle because there was numerous days where I couldn't wake her up. I would wake up, but I couldn't get her up to get me ready for school. Now, this wasn't every day it was like that. There was a lot of days like that. That's where the beginning stages happened on how I was teaching myself, having the mindset that I have today on to be independent. When nobody was around, I learned how to put a shirt on. I learned how to get a drink or something small out of the fridge to eat. And then I would, of course, have to call a friend, family member or friend to come help me finish getting ready and get me ready for the bus. At that point, I had been writing with my feet and doing everything with my feet. I was in an electric wheelchair, and that's because New Orleans didn't really have the technology to get me up and walking. So when I moved to Dallas, I got a part of Scottish Rite Hospital, and I started walking. Didn't have to worry about having a van with a lift and all the extra stuff that goes into that world. I transitioned into school really well. I had to relearn how to write and everything with my arms, which I still do that today. I do everything with my nubs nowadays. So school was great. Come freshman year, though, I had an incident that was the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life, even facing the adversity with my disability. My mom unexpectedly overdosed. She passed. Very unexpected. We kind of knew in the back of our mind something would happen eventually. We just didn't know it was going to happen on that day. We ended up graduating high school. Went to a community college in Arlington, Texas. It's kind of funny when you're growing up and you say you'll never do things that you're like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol, and you say, I'm never going to do that. I see my parents doing it, but I'm never going to do it. And lo and behold, I ended up doing the same thing. I got sober, got a job at your local Walmart as a door greeter. I'm great with people. I talk to people. So I met the whole town of Salina. It felt like kind of like a celebrity working at Walmart. And that's kind of how I transitioned into being a speaker. I met my wife at Walmart. She had a couple kids, so I became a dad as well. And 2 years later, we had our own son. And I met Kevin. I'm not sure if you see me sharing his stuff sometimes on LinkedIn, or maybe you've seen him on LinkedIn, but Kevin Honeycutt, he's a world-renowned speaker in the educational field. We met, and he kind of took me under his wing as a mentor. It took me a while to get established. Was actually getting some good business in Kansas. Then COVID hit. Before I get into that, I want everyone to keep in mind, too, the 2 dreams that I had growing up as a child was either being an ESPN broadcaster. As you can see, I'm a pretty big sports fanatic with LSU and the Cowboys and whatnot. The other one was becoming a motivational speaker. My dad actually, he knew someone that worked for ESPN radio, and he had me an interview. I actually went to the interview. I think I did great, but at the time, I could not keep commitments. Ultimately, that fell through the cracks. So I still had a chance of being a speaker. I just had to jump, had to meet somebody to kind of teach me the ropes as far as getting a website, making videos, just getting myself out there. So Kevin really helped out in that aspect.
David, that's a hell of a story. I haven't heard a story like that. And to see you thriving and doing so well today is very commendable. I'm proud to know you. I have a little bit of experience with a parent that used drugs and alcohol as a crutch. and it killed him. The thing I've realized is that people who are addicts have to want to help themselves, and they want to have to change.
Yep.
It doesn't work if their family and friends want them to change when they don't want to change. It's really commendable that you made that change. Here's to you, brother.
I appreciate that.
If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button and share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues who are interested in self-improvement through lifelong learning. And now for a word from one of our sponsors.
Education is changing. Classrooms look different, and the future demands that our students be equipped for whatever comes their way. Educators play a huge role in helping prepare students for their futures. Defined Learning is a K-12 standards-aligned PBL solution that provides high-quality cross-curricular performance tasks across content areas such as ELA, math, science, social studies, computer science, and more. The hands-on projects are based on real-world situations and allow students to apply their learning. Education is changing. Give students the tools and experiences to recognize their futures and make an incredible impact on the world. Defined, the authority on applied learning.
We had the pleasure of listening to George this morning on project-based learning, and he shared his story that his aunt encouraged him to go into education. And she was absolutely right. He's so talented at sharing information in a way that's easy to digest and is inspiring to go back and actually implement and make change.
So my takeaway is that Mr. Valenzuela was very inspiring. He was very motivational and helped me to think about a new way of getting my teachers excited.
When I set out to do a workshop, my key deliverable is energy. And this momentum is used to make connections, inspire, educate, and ultimately transform the audience, so that they're compelled to take that same energy back to their schools and communities. And although we have fun, we tackle the hard topics of today, like educational policy, pedagogy for improving curriculum and instruction, and empowering today's students by connecting our work to the needs of the workforce. So please consider Lifelong Learning Defined for your next keynote, workshop, or conference, and overall instructional and educational coaching needs. My name is George, and I hope to connect with you soon.
We would love to have him come and do some work with us and help us be a little more successful and help our students to be more successful.
As a motivational speaker, David, what's an obstacle you were faced with and how did you overcome it?
COVID, man, like right when I first started speaking, we're getting gigs and it was kind of busy. COVID hit and it totally, which I know you probably felt a little bit, I'm sure a lot of other speakers felt it too.
Oh yeah, for like 2 months, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, I felt I was climbing up the ladder and then COVID hit and I was knocked right back down on my butt. So I was doing the best I could with it. I had a couple virtual gigs here and there. As I teach in my talks, I had to stay in the game, which is not letting obstacles get to you, getting over your obstacles, keeping a positive mindset in the whole process, and just not letting adversity tackle you. I haven't mentioned this yet, but God is a big part of my life. My favorite Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, which states, I can do all through Christ who strengthens me. Faith is a big part of where I'm at today. I'm busy, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be busy, like to the stature of busy that I want to be. I have goals of being international, hopefully one day. I'm finally getting engagements picking back up. Business is slowly getting better, but man, COVID took it out of me, man. And I was just getting started. That was the whole thing. I wasn't really established just yet. I was just getting established. So that's why it took me so long to recover from COVID, is because I was still establishing myself. And so I kind of had to start all over.
I also went through a very similar thing with COVID. In March of 2020, I had work booked all the way through that entire summer. And just like that, everything was canceled. And I think I went a couple of months where I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I was very confident that things would work out. I was very fortunate. I had one client in North Carolina, and she said to me, hey, George, we can do the workshop that we originally planned for because we already had it booked. we could do it virtually, but if it's not engaging, we'll have to wait until after COVID. So I went ahead and learned the breakout rooms, learned how to use Nearpod, made my whole presentation. It was really engaging and they loved it. And after that, I was fine. But yes, I can totally relate of not knowing what's going to happen.
Right. And at that time too, and I know it hit you sideways, but you were already somewhat established at that time too. So if you're feeling that way, imagine me just getting started. I wasn't really unsure of what I wanted to do. I was just unsure of how it was all going to unfold because it took me so long to get somewhat established. And then that happened. And I was like, wow, is this a sign that this isn't what I'm destined to do? Obviously, God has a purpose for everybody. Really think that I'm still on earth today is because I'm supposed to be here speaking in front of crowds, inspiring people that you can do anything you want to do in life. You just have to want to do it. You have to put in the work. If God's ready for you to do it, He'll open those doors of abundance and you're going to be good to go.
And now for a word from one of our sponsors. If you're a STEM and PBL teacher like me, you're always on the lookout for new project ideas and resources. You know George does PBL, and I'm telling you, look no further than SmartLab. SmartLab really has a fresh take on STEM and PBL. I'm proud to be a partner, and they sponsor the podcast. But just don't take my word for it. Check out what other educators are saying about SmartLab.
When students enter into SmartLab, they are allowed to think outside of traditional norms.
It gives them a lot of agency. They feel empowered and important. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the SmartLab environment and the way the project process is set up.
SmartLab becomes this place where they can do those things and have the time and space to communicate better and even deal with social emotional stuff. They're having a bad day. A SmartLab's a place where we can change the pace of what they're learning to match their mental needs for the day. And that comes back tenfold later on when they want to be there and they want to learn and they want to do stuff and they feel safe and they feel like they can get the things they need.
That's one of the big benefits of being in more of a collaborative environment is it makes you have to work. It makes you have to be accountable.
Please look in this episode's show notes for a link to connect with SmartLab. You're doing a lot of work in schools and churches around personal development and growth. David, what is your primary message to educators on personal growth and development, especially today in 2024?
The curriculum that I'm kind of going with, it's stay in the game. What stay in the game does is it elevates personal growth and development. It centers around resilience, staying focused on long-term goals, drawing strength from faith, particularly through the idea of staying in the game. So no matter the challenges or setbacks, with the right mindset, with persistence and trust in a higher power, any individual, they can overcome obstacles and achieve success. I think my message encourages people to find strength in their values, remain committed to their goals, and keep moving forward no matter how difficult the journey may be.
That's fantastic. David, what are 3 things people need to do every day?
Be grateful they wake up because a lot of people don't get that privilege. Have a positive mindset. I know it's really easy to wake up and just think, I can't do this or I can't do that. But that mindset right there hinders a lot of people. And that's what I try and teach in my talks. Is you're going to have the correct mindset. I know I meditate or listen to a book when I wake up. That helps clear my head. Stay positive. Put in the work. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have careers, but if not, make a plan, get a goal, start doing your research on how to implement that goal and just go for it, man. Nobody else is going to do it but you.
What a perfect way to end the show. How can people find you, David, so they can book you to speak at their conference, school, or event?
My website is the one-stop shop, which is davidpowellspeaking.com. It'll have a little button saying let's chat, which that'll go directly to my email. I suggest going to the website first. That way you can see all the presentations I offer and hear some testimonials from previous clients. I'm all over social media, mainly on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And you can find me at David Powell Speaking on all of those platforms.
That's it for this episode. Until next time, this is the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast. Whether you're a teacher or administrator, you lead by walking alongside your students and your staff. You teach them what to do. You model for them. Let's say you're in a situation where you don't know what to do and you bring in a coach or a resource, you learn alongside them. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the second thing is this. Give your people feedback, not pushback. Whoever you push back on, whether physically or verbally, they're going to do it right back immediately. And if they're intimidated by our position, our status, they're going to do it behind our backs and ruin our programs. My guy. I want to leave you on this note. Trajectories can be changed. When I was in 10th grade, here's a snapshot of who I was in 10th grade. There's a rapper named Rakim. I'm not sure if you guys know about Rakim, but he used to say, it's not where you're from, it's where you at. And I played that on my headphones at 16 years old every day until I believed it. And I'm showing you this because I'm seeing versions of this throughout American schools. This is your reality of what you have to face. If I can do it, any kid can do it, but they have to work hard. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with Jorge Valenzuela.